But today was bad. Light work, people. Light work. Seems we're soft all over the pitch. Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another Sunday night episode of the REDFELLAS. The REDFELLAS, my favorite fellas. Sorry, we're slightly late. It's my fault today. As many will know, and as many may not know, today was the last day of Ramadan for Muslims, celebrating it all over the world. And so therefore, I was just enjoying that last opening of the fast that little bit more. But now it's time for a cup of tea and a chat about all things Liverpool. And what a beautiful and amazing panel I've got with me to chat. First and foremost, obviously, my partner in crime, Conroy, the regular, the one that never lets me down, the James Milner, of the channel. You know, you are Mr. Dependable. How are you?
No, I'm good. Good, thanks, Chris. And as I said, no worries at all. You enjoy that because it's. I remember we were chatting after, rushing, like, just take it easy. It's fine. We've got plenty to talk about tonight, so get the cup of tea, calm down. We're ready to go. No hassle at all.
Absolutely.
But on the weekend, I wish I'd made a cup of tea now. That's the reason I'm actually jealous. As soon as you brought the tea out there, I was like, damn. But no, I'm good, mate. And obviously, we'll talk about the game yesterday. It's a strange 12:30 kickoff because it does feel like the time we get to the show every 9 o'clock every Sunday. But because it's a 12:30 kickoff, it feels like a lot of time's passed since then. A lot of things have happened. But yeah, I'm looking forward to going through the game tonight.
Excellent. Of course. Because it's the end of Ramadan, it signals Eid. So first and foremost, Eid Mubarak to all celebrating all around the world, whether you're watching it live or you're watching it on the replay. Have a great time. Stay safe. Stay blessed. To everyone who supported the channel in this first season of mine, you're all amazing. Have a great, wonderful Eid from everyone on the panel. Just a quick super chat. I love these comments that come in. Humbles us all the time. No Sunday night is complete without the REDFELLAS. You're amazing, guys. This wouldn't be nothing without you guys. And this show will definitely not be nothing without my two other guys. Mo is obviously far more regular, and Steve, your debut was so good the other day. The demand, it's all about supply and demand around here, right? The demand, the supply, it matched, had to get you back on. Steve, most welcome again, my friend.
Thank you very much. A pleasure to be asked again. I enjoyed it the other day, so nice to get invited onto this one. I've spent some time on pods before with Conroy, and it was a first for you and me the other day, and it's another new face for me in terms of pods with Mo. So grateful to be here, and yeah, cool. Thank you very much.
Amazing. And always last, but by no means least, Mo. You talk about new faces. Mo is a face that is everywhere these days. We see him on Sky Sports. We see him on Premier League panels. We see him all over the Anfield Wrap. We see him on Liverpool.com, isn't it, Mo? LFC. How's that? What's that website? In fact, give it a shout out.
No, it is Liverpool.com. Well, you got it right. Well done for listing all of those things, because I sometimes forget myself. But
I'm here for you. You might as well hire me as your agent. I'm here for you.
The only sad thing about all of that stuff is it means that I haven't been here as often as I feel like I should have. Like, if Conroy's the Milner, maybe I'm the Nabby. You
Brilliant.
But Mo, that worries me, because Milner's kind of getting faded out there now, mate. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think I've got a new contract coming, if that's right.
Very good point, Conroy. Well made. But Mo, that's a brilliant analogy. That's actually very good. But lads, Sunday night, Mo's got a cup of tea there. I've got a cup of tea that you guys have forgotten, but you'll learn. The inexperienced ones will learn. Always get a cup of tea on a Sunday night, REDFELLAS. This is how it goes. And chat about Liverpool Football Club, guys. And Conroy, one of the things that we always speak on every week when we get comments in the chat and people asking and everything, can we do this quadruple? And the one thing we always say and repeat is, let's hope we're talking about it next week. Because if we're not, it means it's over. Another tremendous, amazing, emotional week has gone past. How do you feel at the end of this tremendous, amazing, emotional week that has just gone past? Just generally.
Yeah, I feel quite good with this one. As you said, Grizz, it's very cliche and it's like footballers doing interviews after the game. How we say it's game by game. But I think in this case it really is, because every couple of days it's a massive game. And I'm happy. I've got to be honest, Grizz, I don't want to take too much of my points away for later. But I did actually feel that even though we were both nervous going into this game, I actually felt more confident as the game went on. Like I felt quite comfortable, and that I was surprised at that. So to be honest, that's gave me a bit of a buzz, and at the same time as the nerves kicking in now, because as soon as the game finished, we got the win. I'm looking at City's next game, and now it's at that point. If I wasn't already, it's literally Liverpool finish, and then you're watching City. Now, people probably done that like 8 games ago. I didn't, but I'm at that stage now, to be honest, and it's kind of kicked in. If that's good or bad, I don't know, guys, but that's kind of where I'm at. But regarding the result, great performance, happy with it, and I know we'll talk about the rotation. I think that's a bonus as well. So overall, I'm pretty much delighted with the way it worked out.
Mo, do you know the previous week? We had the semi-final, didn't we, at Wembley? Then we had the Man United and the Merseyside derby all in a week, and we thought that's the platform, because 3 wins against our 3 most fiercest historical rivals, neighbours, whatever you want to call them, Man City, Everton, Man United. We thought it's the perfect base and foundation to attack the final month.
Mm-hmm.
We now follow that up with equally as important, because at the end of the day, it's all about progression. It doesn't matter who you're playing, as long as you get the 3 points or you progress in whatever competition you're playing in. We managed to play whoever we played. Can't even bother to remind us, because I'm just looking forward now. I don't want to look back. Another tremendous week, another successful week. How are you feeling now going into another amazing week?
Good. It was Villarreal and Newcastle, by the way, in case you had actually genuinely forgotten. It's weird because I'm fully invested in this whole quadruple thing now. I think there was a point where we didn't want to kind of talk too early in case it all kind of blew up in our faces, but they've taken it deep enough for it to be a thing, I think. I mean, if you think of it as like a computer game, like we're on like level 5 now, and like the boss is around the corner. But the problem is that with this game, you've got 1 life. And if you die, you go back to the beginning. Like you can't, there's no save point. You can't just start again. And that's the extra knife edge that we're all kind of living on. But I'm like Conroy, when I'm watching us, I'm calm. In terms of what the parts that we have to do, I've got no problem. When we have to rely on other people, that's when it gets nervous.
I've made the experienced the experienced part of me made a nice cup of tea. The inexperienced, I'm still inexperienced, forgot to put the chat on slow mode. So we've got a few dickheads calling me an egghead, but dickheads in the chat. Mods, do your thing whilst I ask Stay how he's feeling and quickly put the show on slow mode. Steve, same question to you, my friend. Feelings going into the week and at the end of the week, how do you feel now?
Do you know, listening to the other 2 guys speak, Connor and Mo, I'm in complete agreement that previous Champions League seasons, winners and final losses and going close in the league and getting over the line came with a completely different stress as to where we are now. So I'm pretty chilled about it. The things that we can influence, the things that we can do, we will do them well. And I fully expect us to get the goal at the end of it, similarly to the other 2 guys. The one that's out of our hands is the one that causes the most concern, because whilst we are flying and all the plaudits are coming to Liverpool because of what we're doing, we shouldn't forget that there's another team flying too. And at the moment, we're struggling to catch them because they're matching our results. We talked about this on previous pods before, I have. If it ends up that we do a treble, and we don't catch City, it's no disgrace to finish runners up to a side that is as good as this. And I know Manchester City fans who I speak to say exactly the same in reverse. If it's 1 point at the end of the season, we've been here before, haven't we? they're two very, very special sides, the like of which the Premier League's never seen before. So it would be no disgrace to do three cups, including the Champions League, the FA Cup, and the Carabao, and go so close in the league. It's still a spectacular season, and we're what 90 minutes away from playing every conceivable game that we could play this season. That's never been done before, and that's something that irrespective of the outcome at the end of the season, that's something that we should celebrate. So I'm pretty chilled, to be fair. We just look good. The things that we do at the moment, we just look really, really effective at them.
It's amazing. It's amazing if you ask majority of Liverpool fans, and look, we just ask our opinions and we just spoke about it, and we all feel chilled. But this is what supporting, or the team that you support, the levels that they brought us to, Conroy, have made us like this. Like, most fan bases of most clubs don't have the luxury of being as chilled as we are, and it's because of the manager and the fans and the way we're playing that's made us feel so chilled. Are you expecting to be as chilled now? Because I think as Mo said, level 5 now. This is it. We're at that level where of zero. Like literally zero margin for error. Do you expect to be as chilled going into this period now, or do you think it's going to kick in?
No, for me, I would say, fair enough to Steve said chilled. I would say I was more confident and comfortable as the game got on. I still feel like there's going to be games, especially away, where momentum is football, crowds are football, and that I was so surprised at St James's Park that we nullified them so well. I was so impressed with that, to be honest. And listen, Newcastle's team's going to improve. Like, Eddie Howe's done a great job, but let's be honest, they're still, next season they're going to have more players who can hurt us, if you know what I mean. However, I still was surprised that realistically, it was only really a Bruno Guimaraes shot in the last minute. I know there's a few chances, but they're really offside. So to be honest, that was actually very impressive from us. I don't think that'll be the case. If the defence can do that, or the whole team can nullify teams like that the rest of the season, it would be unbelievable. But I feel like there's always going to be spells. That's football. There'll be something from, I think, our away side. Off the top of my head, I'm thinking of Villa away. And we all joke about the Steven Gerrard stuff and that, but it's I feel like that's one that it is Villa away. We haven't played Villa away yet. I feel like that's one with the crowd, that the stadium, you can see that there can be a bit there if the crowd gets going there. But I've got to say, you talk about Klopp and our team, Grizz. I think there's a lot of things we maybe will analyse in the future that we're not talking about now. Like even Liverpool, the way they're playing the offside trap. It's like, I don't think it's ever been done like this. If you want to say because of VAR, it helps, because if they know they're getting it right, 9 times out of 10, they're not going to get penalised for it, or it will work out. It's like, I feel like it's madness that the reason people will like maybe criticise that in the past, but the reason we do it is to nullify teams getting in that area. And I think you're seeing now that yesterday was a perfect example of teams couldn't really lay a glove on us. And listen, if we can do that to the end of the season, it'd be great, Grizz. I just, football tells me different, but I'd love to be proved wrong.
Just a very quick super chat before we move on into the core, the hardcore of the show. Rapstar sent in a super chat. Appreciate the support. It says, hope all as well. Grizz, your Shumanian news had me feeling like a young kid on Christmas Day, or Eid Day, as the case actually is today. Hope he chooses our proposal. I'm very confident. The club are very confident he will choose our proposal. So let's keep an eye on that and hope that Shumani is a Liverpool player next season. But first and foremost, Mo, always the chat around this week was always going to be how Jurgen Klopp manages his squad. Mm-hmm. Because we had a midweek game that we made look very easy, but it was not supposed to be that easy. It's just because we made it look so easy because we're so good. On the back of that, 12:30 kickoff, Newcastle away, the form team, the third most formed team in the Premier League. I think they were second up until yesterday because they lost, but because City won and they lost. But whatever. After us and City, the form team, especially at home, 6 wins in a row. Did you anticipate the level of changes, the amount of changes, we made? Or was you expecting it, knowing that because we got the positive result against Villarreal, so taking a 2-0 advantage, that we probably could have managed that game, and so therefore you knew this one would be the one where he would rotate? or did it take you by surprise?
A little bit by surprise. I thought maybe there might be changes, a few changes in both. I didn't think it would be the case that it would be all of Trent, Salah, Fabinho, and Thiago all out in one. I thought that those two might get rest across the two fixtures. But the reality is, yes, we have got a 2-goal lead. It's a game to get into the Champions League final. I can understand why you don't want to take any chances with it. And the thing is that we always forget in these conversations about team is that we don't see training. So we don't know who's right and who's what. And if you think about Joe Gomez first up, think about the performances that he put in the last 2 times he's played at right back. He has now got to the point where Klopp's like, I don't have to worry about him at all. Going forward or back. I can play him at right back and he can do a job. He's still not Trent Alexander-Arnold, but literally no one else is. But he does a job of a Liverpool right back in the way that I want it to be done. So he can come in. I have no qualms with that. So that's where he's at with him now. With Milner, I think it's a little bit different. I feel like this is the kind of thing where when you're managing players who are getting to the end of their career, who aren't playing probably as much as they want to, and we don't know where he's at in terms of, is this his last season or not? Klopp maybe pulled him aside a couple of weeks ago and said, look, there's going to be one of these games in a run-in where you're going to get a start, and I'm going to need you to give me 65, 70 good, intense minutes. And I know you're up to it, but I'm telling you that now, because if you get grumpy over the next 2 weeks of not getting any games, that's your game. And if that is what he said to him, he grabbed it with both hands. And I feel like if I was Klopp, that's probably the way I would deal with it with Milner, because he needs that sense of responsibility, that sense of ownership. And I feel like we had kind of written him off a little bit as a force, but when you give him that kind of run up to a game, when you give him that kind of atmosphere, he feeds off it. I mean, lest we forget, he used to play there. He knows all about St. James's Park. So he would have really enjoyed that game. And I mean, it looked like it.
Steve, before we get into the incidents and sort of look at where the game started, very similar to the question I posed to Mo. Was you anticipating heavy rotation, or like me, was you anticipating mild rotation? I was expecting 2 to 3 changes. Like I think we spoke, didn't we, previous week? We expected, and I think Conroy, we've been speaking on weeks that we expect him to make sort of one change in each position max for the rest of the season, like alternative games. So maybe one change at centre back, maybe one change in midfield, maybe one change in attack. Steve, did you anticipate that, or did you think, no, this is the game that we need fresh legs, fresh minds almost? How did you feel? And when you saw the lineup, how did you feel?
I didn't expect that many changes. I've kind of been an advocate of, if you're in the moment, stay in the moment, rather than bringing players who, particularly in James Milner's instance, and Mo's quite right in his assessment of James Milner. If you're bringing in players that have not been with the squad in the first team playing in the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's hard to come in and do the job that he did. So I totally agree with the kudos he gets from Mo in terms of Milner's performance. It was kind of a wow moment for me. It was a very brave team selection. He's got bodies on the bench. That's kind of a break glass thing if it goes wrong, where you can go to it and bring them on. But my worry was it was ballsy is the word I was thinking of. It was really, really brave to do this. So 5 changes, so many changes so far into the season. Yes, we've got a huge game that gets us to a Champions League final, but we've got 5 huge games that gets us to, or at that point, 5 huge games that gets us to a league title. So, which of the two is the bigger? Is the club looking at number 20 or number 7? It's hard to say. So I was surprised by the number of changes, and I genuinely thought if we'd got a 3rd goal against Villarreal, then away at Villarreal would have been the game he'd have made wholesale changes. It did surprise me. I did sit there thinking, wow, that's brave. But that's why he's the manager of the football club, and I sell Mercedes. That's why I don't do his job. So at the end of the day, fair play to him. It was a really, really professional performance, and the guys that came in picked up where we left off with Villarreal, and that says an awful lot about where that squad is right now.
We're gonna get into the people. I know Mo has mentioned a couple, but we're going to really get into some of the selections and their performances on an individual basis. But Conroy, I'm absolutely with Steve. I was exactly the same. I thought to myself, wow, like brave, like the biggest one. Okay, Trent, we could possibly understand because Gomez was so good last time. Same maximum pace. Gomez is probably one of the quickest players at our club. The Naby Keita for Thiago, yes, that made sense as well. Everything made sense sort of up to the point where we see Salah. I don't think any of us envisaged Salah to be rested for a Premier League game. And then the Milner inclusion really did rustle a few feathers, let's just say, over social media, as it always does. I called it brave, but as Steve says, that's why we were, to a man and woman and child and everything else, absolutely over the moon when this guy committed another 4 years to us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. On that, Grizz, it's so funny though, because see all those tweets. I think you have to tweet under it to say, "Oh, sorry, I got this completely wrong." You know, I'm not saying people question it. I'm saying people absolutely lambasting it. Not like the guy is literally the only person to win the Bundesliga in the last 12 years, apart from Bayern Munich. Only person to do that. Only person to win the Champions League, Premier League with us. But yet, people still. And by the way, I'm not saying you're allowed to question, you're allowed to have a different opinion. I'm not disputing that. But I seen Twitter after it. I've stopped caring, like, to be honest. For me, it's like there's a reason he does this. Do you think he just does it to wind you up, or he has a reason behind it? And ultimately, Milner, I know it's debatable, but he got man of the match. So therefore, yeah, that if that doesn't prove to you that he's the man, it's that simple. And he's obviously coaching team as well, and he knows best, then I don't know whatever will. Because if you disagree with that, you're going to constantly not question it, but you're constantly lambast any decision. So
yeah, there's a difference, isn't it, Conroy? There's a difference between like debating it amongst fans or friends in a bar, in a pub at home.
Yeah.
Oh, guys, do you think that? But there's a difference between debating it and there's a difference, as you said, by lambasting it. Oh my God, what an awful decision. Oh my God, this is going to cost us. This is disastrous.
You don't get to celebrate if you say that. You don't get to celebrate the result. I don't want to see one tweet to celebrate the result if you say that, because you don't deserve it, because you're not supporting the team. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Question, my original opinion was not sure, especially because Diaz, we usually play with inverted wingers, and Diaz only played out on the right wing 1 or 2 times. To be perfectly honest, he's been the most impressive when he's played on his own foot side more than
I want to talk about that as well later.
Yeah. But just because of that, the Gomez, and then I think Milner as well, people were just a bit, there's a lot, and that's why you question it, and that's completely fine. We're allowed to debate, but it's just when people lambast it, it does annoy me, because it's also a bit cliche now, it's a bit predictable, and most of the time it ends up the same way as well, that you end up with, well, he's quite clearly proved why he's made that decision. And I would say I think Steve sums it up with balls, he's definitely up there. And I can't actually believe how well it worked out. I thought it was going to work well, but it just was like, I think he trusts this team wholeheartedly to control a game now. Like from the centre backs, I think it's not just the midfield. I think he just trusts everybody, Grizz. And that's why I think there's a control that only City have really got as well. I think, as you know, other teams in the league, we're at a different level.
I want to talk about that control. You made a very good point there. I'm sure you haven't read my
very
notes.
rarely do, but we'll write that one down. So it's a good one.
I didn't send you these part. I didn't send you this part of the notes, so I don't know how. Have you got access to my?
No. But on the actual thing, what I would say is, the one thing that filled me a bit of confidence is this was a team that beat United as well. That was a midfield that beat United 5-0. Now you can say what you want about United, but to go there and do that midfield looked good in that day. Now Man United have got issues. I'm not disputing that. However, I felt he's the man. I think, Grizz, you said in training, or was it Mo? That's such a good point as well. I think we do need to remember that as well. And yeah, I was really buzzing for James Milner though, because I've said for full season he's the kind of last 15 minutes, 25-minute guy. For him to do 65 minutes and get man of the match, fair play, genuinely fair play. And his tackle led to the goal. I know we're going to talk about that, but honestly, fair play to James Milner. He deserved that as well. And do you know, Newcastle fans not giving him respect, some of them booing him. I've not got a lot of time for that either, because he was very good for Newcastle, and I don't think he's ever been disrespectful to them. So just thought I'd add that.
Just a quick super chat before I come to Mo. He says, LFCR786 says, appreciate the super chat, bro. He says, fans shouldn't have their hearts set on a quad because we don't want to be underwhelmed if we end up with a Champions League and League Cup double, for example.
That's basically saying don't dream in case it doesn't come true. Nah, screw that.
Nah. Dream on. Come on.
I mean, with all due respect.
Dream on. Guys, there's nearly 300 of you amazing people in the chat. Like, subscribe, share the stream. That's all we ask for. You're all lovely and amazing for tuning in. Mo, game starts. Atmosphere, as usual. Liverpool are in town. So what does that mean? The atmosphere increases at every stadium we go to. Suddenly there's the biggest banners that they brought out just for us. Flags, banners, full house, all of that. Our crowd, I know loads of my friends that went out, sort of stuck in the ears, miles away from the actual action in a corner, but we make ourselves heard, and our team, more importantly, imposes itself and silences. There's about 5 minutes of hustle and bustle from Newcastle, as is expected. That the form team, the big dogs are in town. They're going to try to rough us up, pressurize us. But I thought after 5 minutes, it was pure control from Liverpool.
It was. I mean, I think I counted, it was about 12 minutes on the clock when I said to my mate, yeah, we've quietened them down completely. And it was impressive because they really did try. As you say, they really brought out all the big guns despite it being a 12:30 kickoff. But control is kind of what we do now. And it's funny, it's almost by osmosis. We've come from a point where it's like, I can see what we're trying to do, but we're still not great at it. And now we are great at it. Now we're getting to the point where we're able to suffocate games. And that's why I feel more calm with a 1-0 lead, because the fear, because normally what would happen is that, as we'll get onto the point in the game where we go through us missing chances, those kind of things do make you think, oh, well, one of these days we're going to regret it. But we just didn't let them near the ball. Really. And when they did have the ball, they also had 4 red shirts in their face. So they had a third of a second to make a decision. And yes, sometimes they made a good decision, but the next person then had a third of a second to make his decision. And eventually down the line, you're going to get the ball back. And I think when you look at the way that we're able to do that, amid changing literally half of the team, half the outfield players, that's the really impressive thing. That's what tells me that we are now good at it. We are now, as a unit, good at it. And to kind of circle back to some of the other things that the guys have said previously, like the idea of, are we prioritizing 20 or 7? We want both. Like, we want both. And this is how you get both. Because, like, we talk about, oh, yes, this is the strongest squad we've ever had. This is how you use it. This is how you utilize that squad. This is what that advantage allows you to do. You can change half your team and still look as good as you always do. And not only is it a case of us being able to utilize that to our advantage, it's empowering to all those guys who were coming into the team, because there's going to be times when we're going to need them, and we're going to need them to come in, and we're going to need to perform. And that's a lot harder than we give it credit for. Like, to circle back to the Milner point, I think he's better at 65-minute games than he is at 15-minute cameos, which is wild to say because that was literally his thing for the last 4 seasons. But if you think about it, going back to what I was saying at the beginning about having time to prepare for yourself for the game, knowing your opponent, knowing what your job is, compared to being on the bench and having all those knowledge, but also in the back of your mind thinking, I may not get on here. And whereas when Salah's on the bench, he knows he's getting on. When Milner's on the bench, it's not necessarily true. Like, if we're 4-0 up, he's not getting on. So for him to then have to switch it on and go on the pitch when he is called on is a harder job than knowing exactly what you're going to do and being able to prepare yourself, particularly when you're getting to the end of your career. So with that all in mind, I think all of those things helped us because we knew what Newcastle were going to do. Like, there were all of their little set pieces where they tried to get some maximum in space. You could tell that we knew how they were going to try and get it, and we would jump in the routes, so to speak, to use a basketball term. Sorry, I've got the NBA one in the background. So we were able to plan exactly what we needed to do around what they were going to do, and it worked a treat. And they were getting more and more frustrated on the pitch, Newcastle, you could tell. And we were just calm. And even when we got to the point where we were missing chances, we remained calm. And I think that's going to be a superpower going into May, our calmness in games.
I think Mo makes a few outstanding points, Steve. I brought this chat up because I wanted to come to you, because it's amazing how much of a genius coach we have. Because what happens in the lead up to our goal is Milner, who is brought in, wins the tackle. Jota, who is given a start, who I thought was much improved throughout the game, lays it off to another person who plays, Naby Keita, who didn't play in the midweek, and we end up with taking the lead. Aki 1892 says, our pressing in the last couple of games has been on another level. I think Klopp conserved our energy for the business end of the season. This is, I think, a good point, because we discussed it in terms of how he's managing minutes. I think me and you spoke about it on the last show in terms of how he's managing minutes of each player just at the optimum, so they are ready to step in if needed, and they are fresh, young. Not young, sorry. No need to say young when it's Milner's in there, but he's still young, so you know what I meant. I'm not being ageist. Fresh, hungry, and tactically astute, all on the same wavelength players. And those three players that I've mentioned were prime examples of that, Steve, and it led to the opening goal. You can describe the opening goal as well, which started from the tackle.
Well, yeah, it is. They did, and just going back a step. Once we'd got over the euphoria of it's Liverpool at our place, and we'll get about them and we'll try and unsettle them, which is what every team does for 10 minutes until. What is really telling, and both us and Manchester City do it, is when we get to a point where we can push our centre halves up to the halfway line, it's game over. And if we do that to Manchester City or they do that to us, that's also game over, because that's when you get complete control of the game. What that allows you to do is set your traps all in the final third. And it was a trap that was set where we won the ball back when Milner went in and won the ball. Against, it was Shah, wasn't it? Fabian Shah. And then the link play between Jota and Keita was really good with a little give and go. And it's the delay in the pass from Jota to Keita, just enough time for him to find himself in a position where he can come onto the ball. I've long been an advocate of sort of saying to people about football, good footballers give the ball to other good footballers in areas and in space when they can use it. So they don't just fire it at them for the sake of firing it at them. That was a measured ball. And then obviously Keita's got the skills to dance around the goalkeeper and keep his nerve. And right between the two guys on the line was a bit ambitious, and you know, it was quite close, wasn't it, really? But what that is setting the trap to win the ball back in an area where we can hurt people. Wet absolutely to a treat. If you watch the tackle back, actually Shah's a little bit late in on Milner, so it's actually the other way around if you choose to look at that by the laws of the game, so to speak. It's a really brave challenge because we both know they're going to get hurt there. There's a danger for that. And Milner never shirks anything, does he? But the link play between Jota, and I agree with you, Grizz, Jota was massively improved at the weekend. There's been some justifiable question marks about some link play in recent weeks. And you know, at the end of the day, they are only human. They have good games and bad games, and in different games, that's life. But he looked pretty good, pretty sharp, and he put himself about. And I tweeted actually as soon as I saw the team that all the creativity would need to come from Keita, because we weren't playing Trent, and that came home to roost. He was the guy that ultimately unlocked their defence and scored. So once you do that, you get yourself 1-0 up. We just go into the old routine where we then start knocking the ball around 30 passes before we try and open them up again. And I think once the goal goes in, I'm sure the three of you would agree that the writing's on the wall for Newcastle. The signs are ominous, and we take complete control of the game.
We did take complete control, and again, brilliant segue into sort of the creative side, because no Trent. And we're going to speak about the defense in a little while. But Conray, Steve talks about he thought Keita would need to be the creative hub because of the no Trent, no Salah. But I thought Klopp done something very smart, clever, and the first time we've seen that link up, and I absolutely loved it. So we've touched upon Jota, and absolutely Jota hasn't been playing, even though he's been scoring. We discussed it. His overall performances have been slightly...
he's been in poor form. 100%. He's been in poor form. He
so
can't score a goal and then can't pass the rest of the match.
But I thought it's amazing what a bit of competition in the squad does for you, because I thought he was a man revitalized, looked hungry, fresh. In fact, it was the Jota that we saw in the first few months when he signed us. His link up suddenly play, he was fresh in the mind as well. You notice Steve talks about the pass, you know, and the link-up play. I totally agree. But in terms of that creation, no Trent, no Salah, most teams would, their eyes would open and say, what? So therefore, we should be able to control that right side. I thought most of the threat was down that right side because of this fella, Luis Diaz, who played on the right-hand side, Naby Keita, who played on the right-hand side and was absolutely ably backed up and left to concentrate on his defensive duties, Joe Gomez. But we're going to go into Joe Gomez, I said, and his backup play in terms of how he backed up this. He done the simple things brilliantly. But I just want you to touch upon that new triangle. We've always spoke about the Trent, Salah, and Mo triangle. Include Hendo in that as well, possibly.
And
None of
Elliot
them-
for a little bit of season as well.
Yeah, well, Elliot's miles away. But
No,
now,
but I just mean like that we kind of looked into that because of that, didn't we, at the very start.
but Mo recently, that was the tried and tested formula.
Yeah.
None of those components were available or selected on the other day when we played Saturday. Yet the threat was still there. That bodes really well for going forward, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and it's another it stops you being predictable as well, Grizz. Like you
Yes.
talk about the movement in that triangle, but also if you've got a right-footed right winger, like I do think sometimes we forget how good Mane was at the right wing when he first signed. Like I do think we really forget. Like I think we gloss over that far too much. And I think Diaz again, he does the same thing at the right side. He'll just jink past the player, and it looks like he's going to get tackled, and he'll just go by them again. And to me, that's wow. That just the options are unendable. Then you got so many options with that possibility, and again, it allows teams who are maybe prepared for a Salah, they're probably thinking, right, just keep him on his right foot. He's not going to do that. Well, that's the opposite from that target when you've got Diaz, because you've got the option of him going down the line, but then you've also got the option of Keita's kind of dynamism in there as well. And then to be fair, Grizz, I thought Gomez added to the attack quite well a few times. There's
He did. Yeah.
he done really well. It's you know what I mean. It's the
pressure. He wasn't the onus was taken away from Gomez to provide the creativity because of their two link up. And Jota sort of drifting out there.
It gives space as well. I thought a few times it gave space for Gomez to run into because they didn't expect it. They just assumed because it was Gomez, and then they're focusing on Diaz and Keita. I think, again, Grizz, we spoke about that triangle. We spoke about both triangles and both sides, but especially the right. I just think it's like, I don't mean to keep going on this bandwagon because I get it must be boring, but Diaz is literally, it just looks like a steal now, this guy, and it's like, honestly, he seems to adapt so quick, and he's made me kind of go on this narrative that you need to stop looking at goals and assists all the time, because if you just watch every Liverpool match, you'll see how good he is and the effect he's having on the team. And I just think, not to take the point away from the triangle and Keita, because he was superb as well, but Diaz, man, both sides, he just looks, and you think he can be a false nine as well, Grizz, or be in the middle going forward. So honestly, the options are just magnificent.
They are magnificent, but I think it's time to speak on, and I'm going to let you have first go on. We've spoken and glorified Milner, rightly so. I think Milner was like a man possessed out there. You could tell he's been sort of been waiting on the sidelines, as Mo alluded to, in terms of Klopp just in here. You will be needed. You will be needed. You are one of my generals on the pitch, and one of these tricky away games where I need a general, you will be needed. And I think this was probably the only game he will be needed. Maybe, hopefully, we don't know. But he took full advantage of it. Mo, I want to speak about the guy I said that was taken out, sort of put back into the team for a crucial game. And it, to me, a massive, massive sign of confidence and trust in Joe Gomez, in being a very, very able deputy to Trent, which we have been crying and screaming out for. Plays it totally different, but dare I say it, plays it very effectively, Mo.
It does, and you're right. I think the trend is for us to look at him through the Trent prism, but he's clearly being told to do a different thing, and that's what suits him better. Like, I think what Conroy alluded to is simplifies his game, because the difference is that Trent is normally the one who gets the ball at the start of an attack. He's still very much a playmaker, and a lot of our passing movement is in order to get him into space in certain areas. Whereas Gomez is more just a supplementary part of the passing machine. and it's other people who are the ones who are trying to get into space. But you mentioned Saint-Maximin. Obviously, he is the man who, when he gets the ball, causes the most danger. He didn't give him a sniff at all. And yes, I think speed-wise, he matched up with him. Knowledge-wise, he matched up with him, as in he wasn't falling for any of those ultra step-overs or anything like that. And he did contribute towards the front end of the pitch as well. And it's noticeable that now the forwards are now reading his tendencies. Like, they know when he's going to put the ball in first time. They know when he's more likely to try and check back. And these are all building blocks to allowing him to be able to feel more comfortable as that. And we kind of talk about it on almost disparaging terms, the idea of the backup right back, because essentially we still expect Trent, a young man, to play the bulk of the games. But the fact is that if he can say to Klopp, look, you're not going to have to sign another player. That's essentially what he's saying, because otherwise we would need to sign another player. I can save you that. And I think he's going to get more opportunities for games at centre-back next season. I wrote an article last week that's out there in the ether on Liverpool.com.
Plug it.
I will. I'll talk about some of the reasons why I think next season could be better for him. I mean, obviously there's the World Cup, in which Virgil van Dijk's going to be playing a large part. I believe the Netherlands are going to probably go quite deep, which means that his year is going to be managed. Joel Matip's already being managed. If we win everything, we're going to have more games. So there's all these reasons why he could be getting more games as centre-back. But it's almost like a quid pro quo in terms of, if you can do this job for me here, where I need you, where I know you're not doing your favourite thing, next season, opportunities will come clearer. And we've always got to remember, pre-season is kind of like a reset every year. Everyone goes into pre-season with a chance. So he will have that same chance. He might not necessarily be ahead of anyone at the moment, but he can go into pre-season and say, hey, you know what? I can still have the ability to make myself first choice when the first game comes. So all of this now is logging confidence, logging idea to build on for the future, I think, when it comes to Gomez. So whereas previously you could see where he was maybe getting a little bit unsettled, it was a little bit on the outside looking in. Now we're getting to the situation where it's like, yes, you are going to be needed more. And I think there might be another one for maybe him and maybe Milner as well. I think with Villa coming so soon after Spurs, I think that might be another potential one where there's a few more changes than we anticipate. I think particularly if it's a scenario where we've won at Spurs and beating Villa puts us back to the top, I think, again, I mean, we think Milner used to play there as well, so he knows all about that ground as well. So you can see, having done the job well once, he gets the job again, because I feel like that's kind of what happened with Gomez, isn't it? It's like, I asked this of you, you did it, so I'm going to ask it of you again.
Steve, Mo, speaking about Joe Gomez, talks about sort of a few months ago, we could... I don't know how, but I think sometimes the fan base can sense the frustration that was sort of with Joe Gomez, in terms of, you could see him possibly being frustrated, especially with him not getting a look in. Konate clearly ahead of him, Matip totally fit, fingers crossed, for the rest of the season, and being so available this season. But I think, and for me personally, I think it's an absolute foregone conclusion that we keep him at all costs now, because this level of Joe Gomez, and I spoke about it a couple of weeks ago, when Virgil van Dijk got injured and before Matip got injured, I visibly saw an improvement in leadership quality in Joe Gomez just before he unfortunately got injured. And it's been a horrible, horrible year for him. But I'm so chuffed for this kid because he's still relatively young. I'm so happy for this kid, Steve. I don't want him at any other club. This guy has gone through hell and back and is now being an effective member of one of the most glorious Liverpool squads. No, the most glorious Liverpool squad that I've ever seen in my lifetime. And he absolutely deserves everything in life. And I think I totally agree with Mo. I haven't read his article. I am going to read his article. But the points that he's made absolutely make sense, because it absolutely means we don't have to spend money on a fullback, stroke centre back. And another thing that I want you to give your opinion on is how many great centre backs started off as fullbacks? So many. And there's no harm in him learning that trade to a T and then eventually becoming the long-term centre back for Liverpool Football Club.
Totally agree. Some really good points that made there about Joe Gomez. I've always been of the opinion that Joe Gomez was a guy that needed 7 or 8 games in a row to get back to where he should be after an injury. We've never had the luxury of allowing to give him the 7 or 8 games because we've got other players. You've referenced Konate and you referenced Matip that will get in above him at centre back position. What we shouldn't lose sight of is his injury was horrendous. Patella tendon. You could basically take his kneecap off and walk away with it if you wanted to. That was the extent of the injury. There's a psychological hump to get over when you have an injury like that isn't just a physical thing, it's a mental thing, and you have to make that challenge where you end up on the floor and you get up and go, it works, it didn't break, I can do that again. And we saw that with Van Dijk very early, because Van Dijk's a very self-confident guy, and modern science, ACLs are dealt with quite easily these days. That sounds crazy to say, but they really are. But with Joe Gomez, he takes a bit longer to feed himself back into the side. I agree completely that it would be the wrong time for Joe Gomez to look at other options. Aston Villa would be an obvious choice for someone like Gomez. Why would you leave Liverpool to go to Aston Villa or similar? It would only be a downward step. And at 24 years old, he's got his footballing career largely in front of him, certainly as a centre-back, because they can play a little bit longer, a little bit deeper, and he's quick and he looks after himself. So no reason why he can't have 10 years playing for Liverpool. The question we have to ask Joe is, obviously Matip is in here and now is ahead of him. That's not a long-term thing because Matip's 31, and do we do future contracts with him? I'm not sure. How long do we keep him for? Then you've got Virgil, who's also sort of the wrong side of 30 now for us. It'd be lovely if he was 25, but he's not. So the reality is we have to look at succession planning for the future. Virgil said himself when he was interviewed with both Konate and Gomez, these two fellas are going to be your centre backs for the future.
They know.
I totally agree with that. Itchy feet is always a worry with players that want to play more game time, want to play more minutes. With the World Cup round the corner, I'll read Mo's article too because I'm intrigued now to pick up his points. I just think he's come back into form at a good time. He's back to the Gomez of old at the weekend, where all of his attributes, his recovery speed, he's reading the game really well. It's not easy to play as a fullback when you're a centre back. We saw that when he played on the left-hand side because,
especially in a Klopp system.
Exactly right. Exactly right. Because a fullback will tell you the touchline's his friend, but a centre back playing as a fullback can't share that opinion. It's very, very difficult because they normally have somebody on the outside of them, so it makes it very difficult. I just think he's been a breath of fresh air the last couple of games he's played, and I have no concerns about him playing at right back or centre back again this season. He's a great option. Klopp's job now, and I'm sure he's well underway with this, is to convince Gomez that because he covers so well at right back and because he can cover at centre back, there will be game time. He's a really, really important part of the squad. I know we're looking at the youngster from Aberdeen, is it? But that's not a guy that's going to come into your first team squad sort of a week after you sign him and then cover for Trent. We play differently. You notice when Trent doesn't play, Keita plays every game because of that, as I said before, that creative influence. But as Conroy said, there are a number of occasions when Gomez got down the outside and he drilled a ball really flat into the box. We were really unlucky not to score off it.
Should have got an assist. It's an absolute terrible miss by Mane. He's unlucky, but he's got to score that. So that should be assist. I'd be fuming. I'd be like, that gets my assist up for the season. If that was Robbo or Trent, they would not be happy. It should be a goal. So sorry for that.
No, you're fine, mate. Totally agree with you. So things look good for Joe going forward, and I'm really pleased because the broken leg and then the knee injury, which you could do nothing about. One is an accident, one is just wear and tear that you don't know it's coming until it happens. Both of those things could have ended his career. Yet here he is on the precipice of history with this team. So fantastic story that he's got himself back in the right frame of mind and physically fit to play.
One last thing about Joe. He's 24 years old, and he's the second longest serving player at the club after Henderson.
Oh,
So
wow.
he could be a legend. He could be an absolute legend. He could be Carragher.
He could.
And that's the comparison I was thinking of, not obviously because of, not sort of in terms of being a local lad or whatnot, but the fact that Mo's just reiterated that point, that I didn't even know that, Mo. That is amazing.
That's a proper good quiz question, Mo. I need to write that down. That's a great question.
Yeah.
Because no one will come up with that. They'll end up
Yeah.
saying Milner. That's a good one. That's a
He
really
was there,
good
as I
one.
say, he literally saw it was only a short period of time before Milner, but he was there before Milner. So,
But the point being, Conroy, that just shows you almost how much we take things for granted in terms of some of these players, and you know how long seemingly they've been on the scene. But yeah, he's only 24 and he's got so much ahead of him. Hopefully for him, God willing, and he has no more issues with the bad, horrendous luck he's had with injuries. This guy, as Mo says, and Steve's talked about his other qualities, he's got an amazing potential career ahead of him. For me, even though I posed the question a couple of months ago, but it was only on the back of us making inquiries for other centre-backs, which indicated maybe Joe was getting unsettled behind the scenes in terms of he was happy at Liverpool, but he wasn't happy with the game time, and now he's come back to fully fitness. I think this situation with the hybrid of right back and being the centre-back for many years to come, I think it ends that debate question.
Let's hope so. Let's hope so.
Yeah. No, I do. I think I've got to add as well. I think against Watford, you could tell that, to me, Joe Gomez, it was maybe that game or maybe the Norwich one, something like that. You could tell he relished playing it right back now, and I think he does. Like, I really do. It's not the same as Trent, but I look at it like, and Nathaniel Klein gets a lot of disrespect, I think, in football in general. He's unlucky with injuries as well. But I used to feel like if we're replacing Trent, and I'm kind of like, I've changed my opinion. I'm like, no, actually, I think we need an alternative option who can do a job, but also it doesn't need to be a Trent. It doesn't need to be a playmaker. And I feel like Gomez is the question. Like, I don't even think this is a question anymore. I think that's the answer. I think this has showed you that Jurgen Klopp's not interested in buying a right back. That is his right back. Even the Calvin Ramsey thing, ironically, I know we're looking at that, but I might be wrong here, and Gresmo, Steve might know more. But do you know who Tony Gallagher is? Tony Gallagher is a Scottish left back that got signed about 4 years ago and never once got in the first team squad. So what I would say to that is, sometimes it works out in that way. Sometimes it's just academy product to sell on. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm not, I unless I'm blown away and they get in, I'll hold my hands up. But at the moment, I think it'll be initially looked at as academy player. Harvey Elliott can't even get in the bench right now, and he's literally the most looked upon youngster in the UK. So that says it all. But on the point of Gomez, for me, like, I think he's relishing now. I think you talk about the Jota thing, where Jota, he says, I know you're going to get assist today. So you can tell he's doing work behind the scenes. I don't know this for a fact, but I'm pretty sure Trent will be helping him. Like, I think you can tell Trent's probably going to help him, because it's not a kind of in-your-face competition, because he's helping the team with Gomez there, and then Gomez is the option for cover. He's going to get loads of games. I say this to Grizz all the time. We need to stop thinking in the comments, fans, it's 11 games man sport. It's not. It's 13, 14, 15 players. Manchester City have got John Stones, Nathan Ake, Eric Laporte, Emerick Laporte, and who's the other one? Diaz,
Yeah.
right? Diaz. So that's 4 top quality centre backs, right? You can debate Ake, but he's still a very good centre back, right? So what I'm saying is, that's what we're up against. That's as hard as it is. We've not got the same funds, but that's what you're up against. So we've got 4 right now. So why would we even consider getting rid of one? To me, that's crazy. And I feel like Gomez, from that point of view as well, Grizz, now, he agrees with that. He knows he's going to get a lot of games. Matip is a short-term thing, as Steve said. Personally, I think it could be Gomez and Konate battling for the second spot with Van Dijk next year or the year after. So I don't really think he's got very long to wait, and I think he'll get game time in the meantime. So I'm very calm about that situation. I don't think it'll be anything.
Just on that point, I think you're 100% correct. Manchester City and Chelsea have proven that to be at the top of the Premier League, it's 20, 25 players, never mind 15 and 16. anybody signing for Liverpool, Manchester City, Chelsea, or teams with aspiration to break into that almost top tier, if you like, have got to recognise that unless you're Mo Salah, and we saw Mo Salah rested at the weekend, typically this is a horses for courses scenario now where we may not choose to play Trent against a St Maxim because there's an opportunity to rest him, and we can go with someone who's maybe a bit more defensively resolute in that position. So it's Klopp will do a better job than all four of us at talking to the squad to say, actually, this is we're going to play 60 odd games this season. It's totally a marathon. So you will all get to play games. And the point that you guys made about setting Milner up for the lieutenant role in the odd game is a perfect illustration of saying, actually, the analysts have been to me with a laptop and said, you can't play this player because we want to look at him on the machines and his muscle density is poor. That's an injury waiting to happen. Klopp will tell you he's waiting for a message on his smartphone to say who he can and can't play. And that's from the medical team saying to him, do not play Thiago this weekend, for instance, because he's susceptible to an injury. So you've got to have 20, 25 top class players, because if you don't, we become a farmers league and Manchester City run away with it every year.
I think even though I know the answer, it's only fair we ask the question to the panel if our subscribers, and this is Hussam from This Is Football. Go and check out his channel as well, people. He says, question to the panel: hypothetically, Newcastle put a 50 million bid for Gomez. Are you selling? I think I don't need to sort of, I speak for all, because look, the way we look at it, and I think.
Sell Nico Williams. Sell Nico Williams. That was in chat.
To Mick Moran, because Mick Moran kind of just answers this sort of for us. I hope Mick, you're well, and the family are well. He says it's the improvement, willingness to whip balls into the box rather than being a safe fullback, which has impressed me most. There's no better backup option for right back, centre back for any club in the league. That's absolutely spot on. Because with 50 million, who are you going to buy as a replacement right back? And as a starting, don't forget, Joe Gomez is potentially a starting centre-back for one of the best Premier League teams ever in 1920? You know what I mean? Where are you going to buy two players to cover those positions for 50 million in the current market, when Mo's already told us that he's already ingrained in this club because he's the second most longest serving and knows the formation? And that was a testimony again. That performance, Conroy, was testimony because he hasn't played much in this back four. He hasn't been part of the setup and this amazing offside trap that we keep catching people left, right, and center. In fact, we caught them offside 9 times apparently in that game. Joe Gomez stepped into that back line and was actually playing the offside line at times better than the other 3. How cool is that?
I think that probably his experience in the past, especially playing with Virgil that at centre back, that probably helped as well. But absolutely, I think the best thing, and it sounds really bad because it's more about the person's physical health and his mental health as well with the injuries he's had.
Yes.
The fact that it doesn't look like it's hampered his pace is a bonus as well. And I'm not saying you just throw him out because of that, but he still looks as much an athlete as he ever has. To me at the start, it was like he was so athletic and it was about nurturing him to be as best as he could defensively and as a footballer. And I feel like, he's not been perfect. He's learned a lot. I think I look at the battles in Man City. Sterling's done him a few times as well. Like, so there is players who've caught him out. But to be fair, against St Max, who's one of the most exciting players in the league, to defend as intelligently, I would say that, because I've seen some people who maybe try to be erratic against St Max, go in heavy against them. Doesn't work against a player like that. To actually give him the space, and I think you saw that there was traps, like they put him in to come central because they know the midfield will overcrowd them. I thought it was, as a whole, and Gomez, the team defended very intelligently against them. And again, Grizz, this is what I'm talking about. It's like the intelligence we're using now, because that team's been together for so long. It's so impressive.
It is. And Mo, I thought the whole performance was impressive. Honest to God. Taking into consideration everything, in terms of the pressure, in terms of the quick turnover, the team changes, the form team we're going to, they want to put on a show for their home fans and show that with potential investment, we could possibly be up with the big guys. I thought, taking all that into consideration, I thought this performance was, without that, for me personally, one of the most satisfying of the season for the rest of the game. From that goal onwards, I don't know how you felt. I was so calm and relaxed with this team now.
I was, and I was the only one around me because obviously there were moments like Conrad mentioned the Mane chance, the one that he should have scored, and there was one where Joss was through and he smashed it straight at the keeper. And I mean, I'm not one who thinks that massively we need to score lots of goals in every game. I'm not worried about the goal difference battle in the same way that some other people are, but there are times, as I mentioned previously, there are times when you watched us do that in the past and you would think, uh-oh. Whereas now I just think, And not only do I think that, you can sense the players are thinking that as well. I mean, they're able to shake it off. Let's cast our minds back to the last time we went to Newcastle. Do you remember the game at St James's Park last year where it ended 1-1 and we had all those chances and we looked like we could score, and we had that one that could have, should have been a penalty, and we were all debating as to why we're not functioning the way we used to. Obviously, we know the reason why now, but we have to remember that wasn't that far away. So looking at this now and what we're seeing and how different it is and how it is back to being that 100% elite unit, it is really satisfying. I know what you mean, definitely. And I thought Newcastle was potentially a tough game. I'd said on some of the shows that I think it was the equal of, if not more tough than Spurs. And I still stand by that despite Spurs' play today. So I was very pleased to get it ticked off. I really was.
I was as well, and I'm of the same opinion. I really thought this was a pivotal weekend. It so happens, Steve, it hasn't changed much in terms of the league, but as you alluded to earlier, if we win all our games, we end up with a domestic cup. No, sorry, we end up with a cup treble and finish a point behind one of the most expensively assembled squads. No, the most expensively assembled squads ever, and an elite coach. It's still potentially an outstanding season. And one thing I want to touch upon before we get into the man of the match and who we thought was the stand-up performance, I think we've named a few, but I want to hear your opinions on who was the outstanding performer. This mentality giants tag that was given to us, obviously, a couple of seasons ago by Jurgen himself, I think people are seeing the value and the meaning behind that, because mentality giants, in my humble opinion, was shown to its maximum last season, where through everything, through all the adversity, these mentality giants still managed to finish third and they end up in a Champions League slot. Let's not forget, ahead of the likes of Chelsea and Spurs and Arsenal, whatnot. We've now taken that into this season and we can see where we are now. This mentality giants tag wasn't a fluke, wasn't just a quick, was it? He meant it, because he knows this squad down to a T, each individual member, and we're showing it again and again and again now.
100%. And the thing that stands out above all else is, we'll remember the last game of the season. Both Reece Williams and Nat Phillips are walking side by side, both of them bleeding in the last game to get us over the line, to get us to that position. What he's instilled in the whole squad is a self-belief that we're unbreakable, and that's always been Jurgen Klopp's mantra, to go and create something, a family that nobody can touch from the outside. So good, bad, or indifferent performances are not met with derision and criticism. They're met with support, and I think that's huge, absolutely huge for the club. Confidence to put Joe Gomez back in there, confidence to put James Milner in there. If you'd asked us
such a crucial
exactly
time.
Right. And if you'd asked the fan base, which you should never do, by the way, but if you'd asked the fan base prior to the game, should I do that? Vote yes or no on Twitter. Could you imagine you'd break the internet, wouldn't you? It's just this feeling in the club that, and the thing that was key is you make those 5 changes and there's no drop off. It's kind of like a continuation of what we did against Villarreal, which I said on your show earlier on, back end of last week, was arguably the best off the ball performance I've ever seen from any Liverpool side, from any side ever. It was ridiculous. We still have the level of control. We still have the ability to set the traps, to do the press and the counter press, to push the centre backs up to the halfway line to take complete control of the game. That is now a club thing rather than a player thing. That is happening throughout the club.
Spot on.
So everybody that's up for selection, and that is the Harvey Elliott's, the Curtis Jones, the Simicast, even Taki, Divock Origi, they all know what the club expects from them. They all know the game plan. They're all well versed and well drilled on it, because if you want to play a part of this push for the quadruple, you have to understand what we're trying to achieve every single game. There'll be different tactics for every single game because of the different opposition that we play against. There'll be different traps that we set for that opposition to get the ball back early, depending on how they play. They're all dialed in. They're all 100% dialed into what we're trying to do. That's why I believe we can do it, because we know going out on the pitch every single game, those guys are going to deliver. As I said at the sort of start of the show when we spoke about can we do the quadruple, it's just a shame one of those isn't within our control, because if it was, I'm banging the drum every day of the week and twice on a Sunday to say we can do the quadruple. So the thing with the club is the mentality he's given them, the mentality monsters is, this is what we do, this is why we do it, nobody can stop us. And at the moment, we are in ridiculously good form, and it doesn't matter who he picks.
Conroy, man of the match for you. Is there any honourable mentions? Well, I think we know the honourable mentions, but I'm going to have to really put you to the test and choose one.
For me, it's a hard one. I do think, though, I'm going to give it. I would stick by Lucy Ward. I would give it to James Milner, and maybe that's me being maybe nostalgic, because I know Naby was outstanding as well. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like there's a lot of jeopardy going into the game, and people were just ready. Had the tweets in the draft to go at Milner, and it was just basically, I was going to swear there. I'm not going to swear, but basically he came out on top.
Leave that to me. Let me do the swearing. You're a very calm, rational person.
So on that, listen, sometimes I'm always logical about stuff, but he deserves that. Just even if he was like, at 8 and Naby, and like maybe they were level, and we're looking at small margins, I'm giving it to James Milner, because you know what, that factor has to come into it, because people were ready with the pitchforks out to just have a go at him, and he became man of the match for me. I thought he was outstanding. And just when I'm on this, Chris, just to add, what a tackle. Sharfilled him, if anything. Don't start your rubbish. Don't spend 5 minutes on analyst when there's nothing to talk about. Honestly, and secondly, shout out to Andre Mariner. I know Grizz isn't his biggest fan, but I thought he had a really good game, and I thought that was a really good decision, to be fair.
Conroy, I'm absolutely in agreement with you about Andre Mariner. And I know I'm not a massive fan of him, and I know I've said it in the past, but I remembered you because I know you're very much wanting to become a referee. No, I'm joking.
No, but just people deserve credit when they have good games, And
exactly. I know. I'm only winding you up, but I know that you like giving credit to referees when they deserve it. He absolutely deserves it. He did have a very good game. Conroy, your man of the match, as hard as it is, or is it?
Well, I'm going to get articles and it being a ref. Sorry, Mo, he's going to get me people sending me stuff now. I can't even do that. Sorry.
I think for me, I'm going to give it to Naby. For the simple reason, well, not the simple reason. Obviously, I feel like he did have a really good performance, but he doesn't get to be the hero that often, does he? Think about it. We can recognize when he plays well, is granted, but he's never the guy we were all talking about. He's never the hero. And I always remember in previous seasons, particularly in the title season, everybody got their moment. Everybody got their moment where they were like, there was one game where Henderson scored. I think it was Southampton away. That was his moment. There was one for Robertson. There was one for Trent. Even Matip scored a goal. I mean, Matip literally does score one goal a season, so he gets his moment every year. But it just kind of felt like everybody got their moment to celebrate. And I feel like this is Naby's moment. This is the one where you're kind of like, we talk about Origi at St James's Park from a few years ago, where he pops up to give us the win at a time where we really needed it deep in the season. Naby did the same. And I think for his actual contribution as well, I think, like Conroy said, he is always trusted with more responsibility whenever Trent's not in the side, because he can do it. And we had Diaz in a position where he hasn't been so far in this Liverpool team, but Naby is intelligent enough to be able to play off of him, to be able to work out where the space comes from, where he runs, and to just fit what the team needed at that point. Because that's my favorite thing about Naby. He's not all things to all men like some people may have thought he was going to be when he arrived, but he is very much a chameleon in as much as he can kind of shapeshift himself to whatever is missing from the team. So whoever he's beside will depend upon how he plays. And I think all good teams need a guy like that, and particularly one who's quite unassuming and doesn't big himself up a lot. So there you go. It's a long-winded way of saying, well done, Naby.
Two brilliant cases, one for Milner, one for Naby. Steve, any different, or have you been persuaded by the two lawyers?
So honourable shout-outs would go. Joe Gomez is in the honourable shout-out conversation because of the seamless transition into the position he played in, and the contribution going forward as well, and dealing, as Conroy said, with football IQ to deal with Alan Maxim, which is not easy to do. Cast your mind back a couple of years ago, Andy Robertson makes a 70-yard lung bursting run to close down every single Manchester City player, including the goalkeeper. James Milner did it too on Saturday against Newcastle at 37 years old. So when you talk about generals and guys who are put in the team to instill Klopp's plan and be Klopp on the pitch and show that spirit, 37 years old, and he did that. And when they broke, he still wasn't out of position like 2 or 3 minutes later, back quickly to do it. So for me, not had a lot of game time, in fairness, and that's to be expected at this stage of his career. But he came in, he absolutely did a job. He led by example. I thought he was really good. I was concerned about him being in there, if I'm being honest, from the off. But I hear Conroy's point about he's better starting a game than he is coming into a game and trying to adapt to the pace of the game at 37. That's never easy to do at 20, never mind 37. So I would probably pick James Milner as my man of the match because he typified what a squad player can do when he comes into a well-oiled machine and be seamless, and there'll be no question marks, no pitchforks, Conroy. No criticism of him on social media at the end of the game. A lot of humble pie being eaten. So
no, it was silent. It was silent. I didn't see any of those accounts mention
exactly. So I'm going to go with James Milner because I just thought it was like rolling back the years, wasn't it? Watching him.
Well, just like how balanced our team is at the moment, I'm going to balance this argument out. And first, I'm going to give an honourable shout out to. We've mentioned him a couple of times, and it's good. And a couple of people mentioned him. I genuinely think Andrew Robertson is clearly the best left back in world football. That's the first thing I want to put out there. Conroy, I'm going to put you on mute in case you want to keep biting in. I know, but I'm having this bit of Andrew Robertson. Andrew Robertson is genuinely the most all-rounded left back in terms of efficient going forward, better than efficient. I'm maybe downplaying it a bit. Brilliantly defensively, energy-wise, attitude-wise, leadership-wise, commitment-wise, professionalism-wise, everything. This guy will go down in folklore history as possibly one of the greatest £7 million signings of all time. He's genuinely amazing, guys. Absolutely amazing. And I know we always speak and we just mention him. Oh, Robertson was good again. And we always focus on Trent, whatever. Robertson's fucking amazing. I'm going to swear. Sorry, Conroy. I've been told not to swear as much, actually, in the chat. People say, Grizz, you swear too much. And yes, my parents told me that when I was young. And it's been a long old age problem for me. But I'm cutting down. Insane. But I'm with Mo. I think Naby's responsibility, especially in games like this, no Trent, no Salah, Naby go and create, Naby go and press, Naby go and link up between Jota and Diaz. You be the link because he was the link. Also, how about Joe Gomez? He's making his, not debut, but you know what I mean? He's playing after a long time. Naby, do all those things away to Newcastle where the crowd's going to be on you. John Joe Shelby's going to try to hurt you a couple of times. Bruno Guimaraes is the informed central midfielder. Naby Keita took all those things on board and absolutely dominated that pitch on Saturday afternoon. in my humble opinion. Yes, Liverpool dominated. Yes, we've talked about Gomez, who was insane. Milner, magnificent. Robertson. Jota was very good. Henderson was brilliant, guys, in the number 6 as well. We haven't even touched upon Henderson. I thought Henderson was brilliant in the number 6. But for me, Naby Keita was absolutely insane. And you're right, Mo, as well. Sometimes he needs to be given the plaudits, considering people talk about his price tag and how he's not lived up to expectations. I think they've been out of his hand, the injuries. You can't show how good you are if you're injured. But he's shown when he's not injured how good he is. And I think he's finally come to the party, Naby Keita. But guys, on we go. On we go. We have to keep marching on. No rest for the wicked, no rest for the great. We go into Villarreal. Conroy, the first thing everyone's going to ask about and talk about is, what do we do? How do we treat this selection team-wise? In fact, a good way to talk about this super chat, and he says, how does a team plan for us now with our option, Maths? Thank you, Maths, for the super chat. How does Villarreal, very briefly, try to set up against us, and what do we do selection-wise?
I think with Villarreal, they're probably going to stick to the game plan. They're going to try anything different. I feel like if you look what they've done against Bayern Munich, they will be better on the ball, I think, because it is at their stadium, quite a good atmosphere as well. We talk about momentum in football. I do think they'll have spells, but I think ultimately we'll have more than enough. But I think it'll be a similar thing the way they played Bayern Munich, and as far as I'm aware, Moreno's back for them, the striker Moreno, who is probably their best player along with Dan Juma. So I feel like he's always got a bit more class in the hold-up play, Grizz, because I know against Bayern Munich they ran the wings quite a lot, the two strikers to the wings. So I feel like that they will set up the similar way for me. And I know we'll go into that more in the pre-match. I'll let the other guys answer. But just on the top of, if Mathis is asking a general question, the best way to play us is 100% overloading the midfield, what Potter done at Anfield with the Brighton way. The problem with that is you need to have adaptable and clever midfielders who can do that and be competent and have a good enough transition midfielders, but also someone like a Trossard who's clever enough with his movement as well. And not every team's got that. And I feel like if the most success, that is the way to go. You'll have your best success. We have to have an off day, but that is 100% your best approach. By putting like a big number 9, Van Dijk and Konate or Matip will just eat that up. Whereas I feel like that approach has worked the best.
Mo, how are you tackling Villarreal, knowing that we've got Spurs on the Saturday, guys? Or is it Sunday? No, it's Saturday evening.
Saturday night.
So we've got a few days in between.
I think it's quarter to kickoff as well, guys.
It's literally Saturday night, which is...
So taking into consideration the state of the squad and as we've seen the fitness of the squad and everything else, and the 2-0 deficit, 2-0 advantage, how are you doing this on Saturday? Tuesday?
I think that there's enough gap from the Tuesday to the Saturday to be able to think that I can pick majority of the same players if need be and go for both games. I think, as I said previously, it might be the Aston Villa game after Spurs where you see a few more changes. So I'd be... it's interesting. I think it's a game where we're going to need to quieten the crowds because they're going to be trying to use that as their advantage. So we're going to want to have control of the ball. I think it feels kind of obvious that Fabinho and Thiago come back in, obviously, for this one. The question then is, who, for me, is the third midfielder. And at this stage, I think either of them would be a good pick. We're in that happy situation. I can understand him going with either of them. From Villarreal's perspective, they are going to have to attack more. Moreno is getting back to fitness. He didn't feature at the weekend. By the way, the weekend they lost to Alaves, who are in the bottom 3. So their form isn't massively great. But this game is going to be an occasion. This game is basically their season. For the rest of there's no more important games after this for them. So they're going to be throwing everything they can into it. So we're going to need to have experience. We're going to need to have control. So I would expect to see Salamane Diaz back in harness. That feels like it's still our strongest. And as I said, 5 days between that and Spurs is a good amount of time for them to be able to go again because they have all had some rest. I believe maybe not Mane. Maybe Mane comes out. I don't know, but I would be not taking this game lightly. I wouldn't be thinking that the 2-0 lead allows us to be more anything. I'd be saying this is a game that we should still be going out to win, because of winning this game, you're in the Champions League final. Like, I feel like as much as this is a bigger game with lots of parts, I feel like it would be remiss of us to lose sight of that point, because I've read a little bit of things about the way that we are thinking about the next thing. And like there was an article about in the dressing room after the Newcastle game, they're already thinking about Villarreal. So it's already on to the next one. But when you are doing things, we've spoken about Klopp talking about enjoying the journey. I think qualifying for the Champions League final, that is a moment in which the players will be allowed to celebrate. If we win that game, or if we don't lose that game and qualify for the Champions League final, there'll be a celebration. Like, there may well be beers on the bus and on the plane. Because, again, we've got 4 days till Saturday. And it's important that we have those moments to celebrate. And I think that this will be one of them. So, from that perspective, I think this is still a really important game. It's not just another one to tick off. So I'd be taking it seriously.
Steve, it's amazing how even me and Mo's dragged me back and told me, take this seriously and importantly. It's amazing how off the cuff we're talking about a Champions League semi-final here, where we're literally half-time and leading 2-0, going into another Champions League final, Steve, and yet we're just taking it for some of us, and I got slightly carried away. And thank you, Mo, for bringing me back.
I agree with Mo. You remember AC Milan, Deportivo La Coruña, 2003, I think it was. That Milan team was unbelievable. 4-1 up from the first leg. And then was it Diego Tristan and Pandiani? It can happen.
It can happen. It absolutely can happen. But Steve, we're a different animal, different beast, right?
Correct. And there's no Diego Tristan and Juan Carlos Valeron playing for Villarreal either. And those two guys were
some team.
Maro Silva, Jalmina.
They were unreal that night, mate. Klopp has said on many occasions 2-0 is the worst scoreline you can have, because you can get stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea. Do you stick or do you bust? And invariably you do nothing. And then you got 70 minutes to repair the damage, and the mindset's gone. So the psychology of preparing for this game is huge. So I don't think Villarreal have enough to hurt us, if I'm being honest. Yes, they beat Juve. Yes, they beat Bayern Munich, but we would beat Juve and we would beat Bayern Munich quite comfortably as well because of their defensive frailties. What do? More of the same. It's a keep ball exercise. It's a set the traps exercise. It's to get the press working, because whilst Gerard Moreno is a technically gifted footballer, he's not a guy who can knock the ball over the top and he's going to outrun someone like Virgil van Dijk. It just isn't going to happen. The other guy, the one that is Jalmina, he's the guy that Danjuma. He's the guy with the pace and probably the guy that you would look to hit over the top. But have a look at who they've got in centre midfield. Etienne Capoue basically surrendered himself to Liverpool Football Club prior to the game by saying,
Did you see that interview?
Yeah, Anfield's hell. You don't go to Anfield, you get nothing there. And then at the end of the game, they said to him, so what did you think? And his answer was, I told you, didn't I? And I wasn't wrong. They also spoke to Unai Emery, and he said, we'll have to try to do things differently. We're going to have to try to be more offensive. Villarreal are the least likely to be offensive team on the planet. They played the lowest of low blocks and it didn't work. So they've had a week to completely change their game plan. I don't know how they solve it, because if they step forward 20, 25 yards, you're hanging Raul Albiol out to dry. The fact that he can sit in front of his goalkeeper 10 yards in front of his box and stay there all night allows him to read the game and do the things that he does well, given his experience. Push him 20 yards further up the field where players want to run off him and he doesn't want to play. So if Villarreal do that, then you can see a lot of Virgil hitting 60, 70 yard diagonal balls into Salah in the channels to try and get in behind them. Alternatively, it's just more of the same. And that's all it needs to be. At the moment, our ability to control games of football is arguably our biggest strength, because we can attack when we want to. We can keep the ball and conserve energy when we want to. An early goal for us changes the whole complexion, and then we just go through a training exercise where Virgil van Dijk makes 127 passes because he's just pushing 5-yard balls to Fabinho and getting it back and going left and right. So whilst we should be guarded, whilst we should be professional, you have to look at the calibre of the opposition. I just don't think they've got it in them to score 3 times and keep us out. So I'm expecting that celebration and the beers on the bus and the beers on the planes, and that watershed moment where we can let a little bit out and use the euphoria of the occasion to build for the momentum for the rest of the season. That's pretty much what I see happening.
Just don't be complacent. That's the main thing, because we need to remember the same thing at Anfield. Villarreal Stadium's not Anfield, but there is momentum, and it is quite a close packed stadium. And this is the thing, like in their head, they just need one, and then momentum changes, and then it's, oh no, we can't bottle it now. So that's the way football works. So the biggest thing about Liverpool is, right, don't have to take any unnecessary chances. Play your game, but don't be complacent. That's the one thing that always pisses me off about some teams. They act like see that Capu interview, I thought was brilliant, because it just basically highlights that we're an amazing team, but I think we're very fortunate as well to have a stadium that sucks in teams like that, and you've seen top class teams just be absolutely baffled by it. Don't tell me Etienne Capoue and Danny Parejo can't play 6-yard passes. They can, but when they're in that way, it's just frantic, it's too much. I'm not saying Villarreal Stadium's the same, but I do think there has to be a bit of perspective to that, and not be this, we're the Harlem Globetrotters, no one can touch us, because we have had that a few times at the start of the season and we got humbled quite quickly with it, or at least it showed quite quickly. I just think that's the most important thing. You're your own enemy in this case, I think. Sorry, Mo.
We have know-how now. Sorry, Mo. We have know-how. We've been to 2 Champions League finals. We've got to 97 points. We won the league. We're at the door to another Champions League final. The mistakes that you speak about, the complacency, the West Ham game, which we lost, is probably the one where we turned up expecting to win just because we were there. I totally agree with you. I don't think, given the magnitude of what we're trying to accomplish, that for 1 second this team will be allowed to be anything other than professional.
The last time we got this, first time we got the Champions League, what was the second leg? Roma. What was the final score in that game? Listen, a lot's changed, but I'm just saying we've never spoken about a semi-final second leg with this much ease before, so that it could be in the horizon. That's all I'm saying.
You're right.
I think the thing, you guys are both technically right. I think an important point to put into all this is we've won every away game in the Champions League this season. Every single one. And so a lot of them, there's been periods just like what you were saying, Conroy. Remember Benfica? We went 2-0. They went 2-1. They all looked like it was changing. What happened? We scored. They didn't. So all of those things that we have seen in the past, and we are potential dangers, we know how to deal with them. We can deal with them. We have done it every time it's been asked of us in the Champions League this season. And I believe this will be another one.
You are right, Conroy. Sorry, Giz, you are right, Conroy.
No, Steve, I agree with you. I'm just saying I think if they score, we'll still win. I'm just saying, to make life easier on us, like the Benfica, the Nunes moment, is just take a breath and play your game.
The key for me, I think, in that is that sometimes what we try to do is we try to just control the ball, but without attacking, and just basically try to maybe just waste time with us having the ball, just play it around, make them run around a bit, but we're not really going to attack. I believe that's the dangerous part. Yeah. So if, for example, they score and it gets a bit tight, we do that for a little bit, but then we have to continually try to score.
Yep.
I think that in those moments, that's the thing that I am always screaming, is that, guys, they don't want us to attack them because we are good. And if we attack them, we will score goals. And if we score goals, then it doesn't matter what happens at this end because we are still in head. And that's the point where we allow them to put that pressure on us by stopping trying to go forward. So that's the thing I don't want to see. But I'm hopeful that won't happen.
There's a few super chats that I need to get through. People that have sent in super chats, fear not, I will 100% get through them right now. But there's one question that everyone keeps asking, and I'm not 100% sure about the answer. I don't know if Mo, Steve, or Conroy will know. And Virgil is on a yellow. Needs to be careful.
Gets rescinded. It gets rescinded, so he can't miss the final.
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah, it was at the beginning of the
Steve's on
semis.
it.
Yeah, it's they wipe it at the beginning of the semis, I think. So everyone's on. So he's on one rather than.
Did you remember Ivanovic years ago, and he didn't realise? And was it Jeff Stelling?
Yeah.
Jeff Shreves told him.
That was him.
That's
that was awful.
That was heartbreaking TV.
That actually was. You know what?
Absolutely.
I don't like Chelsea, but that was heartbreaking, to be fair.
I think they're not going to play much different. I think Unai Emery is way too smart and clever to know that if they get caught earlier on, the tie is dead, the crowd will completely die. I think he will try to keep the crowd relevant by keeping them in it. And the way they are going to be in it is very similar, not exactly because Atletico are a different breed, but how Atletico played the second leg against City and stay in the game. Because even if it's even if it's at 60 minutes, and it's 0-0, if they get a goal in that last 20 minutes, it's game on. That's when they will rely on the crowd and momentum and pressure. So look, I think it's going to be, but I agree with all you guys' points that we are a far better team and we should be able to control it. Guys, we were going to look at the fixtures, but we've run out of time. I need to run through these super chats and then let's get off here because we've got so much to do. It's Eid, man. Come on, I need a night off. Where are we? We have, where is this? Okay, Adred says, appreciate super chat. He goes, gents, could the emergence of Gomez and Tsimikas lead to the possibility of experimenting with Trent and Robbo in midfield? Mo, your answer very quickly to this one.
I'm not sure why we'd need to. I mean, I think it just means that them two get breaks, really. And I think if you look at the way Robbo's responded to the threat of Tsimikas, I feel like just having him around is just there. It's just keep stoking his fire. I mean, he doesn't really need much more motivation or energy. He is a machine. But yeah, I think the beauty of having them two is that we get to rest them at times when they do need rest because they are still officially human beings.
Possible start for him, maybe Tuesday. Robertson did run a marathon.
He did.
Always runs a marathon though. I think he'll bring out a health book when he finishes how to have the stamina because I don't understand it. I don't understand how he's that fit.
It's the Iron Brew, Conroy. We know about that.
Well, you know what? I played it the other night and I wasn't that fit, Grizz. So I don't know if that's true. I drink a lot of Iron Brew, but it doesn't work for me.
Steve, this one I'm going to put this one to you, obviously, because you answered the second part of it. Dinesh, who's a massive supporter of the channel, thank you, appreciate it. He says, if Klopp wins the quad, would you rank him Liverpool manager of all time? And we know about the yellow card that's been rescinded or gets rescinded.
It's the ultimate thing that you can do in football in arguably the most difficult times to do it. So I genuinely believe the title that he delivered is the greatest achievements of any Liverpool manager, given the change in the field, change in the things that influence football matches and influence football clubs. Back in the day, it was all about football, not about business, which makes it more difficult to do. If Klopp wins the quadruple, that's the greatest achievement of any football club ever in English football history. They will go down as the best team ever in English football club history, and you cannot deny Klopp's place up there alongside Bob Paisley, and it will take, and Bill Shankly, and it will take a Herculean effort over 10, 15 years to surpass either of those two guys, but it puts him at the top table. It puts him on the Mount Rushmore of Liverpool managers for sure.
I totally agree. I totally agree. Matt says, Robbo, 10 million, whole. Kevin Stewart, 8 million, the other way, 2 million. Amazing. Yeah, I forgot about that formula. Amazing. Shout out to Bilal. He says, Assalamu alaikum, Eid Mubarak to you and your family as well. What a phenomenal performance by our B team. No, don't call them our B team. Liverpool. And 1-0 flattered, absolutely did flatter Newcastle. Excellent rotation by Klopp, Keita. Yeah, we've discussed him. You were too late, Bilal. Watch the show again. Pixelated Pigeon, appreciate the super chat. He says, great show as always. The panel always makes me feel calm about the upcoming fixtures. We were going to delve deep into the fixtures, but we've run out of time. We will do that on the preview show where we will look forward to the Villarreal game and the other fixtures remaining, guys. Really appreciate your time, of course. First and foremost, Steve and Mo, as always, please go and check out their Twitter handles, their socials, their channels. Mo's doing amazing work on so many platforms. Support him, go and back him, like his work, support him in his work. He's an amazing person above all that. And of course, Conroy, we're going to probably do a preview or post-match. We'll sort it out in the midweek.
Yeah.
Apart from that, this has been post-match stroke, look into the near future. On we go. As I said, dream until we can't dream no more. Over and out. Take care.